March 11, 2011, began like any other day along Japan's northeastern coast. Towns stirred to life, children went to school, commuters took to the roads, and the sea glimmered under the morning sun. Then, without warning, the earth shifted. Buildings shook, roads cracked, and the ground rolled like a wave itself. Within minutes, the calm sea transformed into a force of destruction, surging toward the shore with relentless power. This was not a typical earthquake. It was a magnitude 9.0 tremor, one of the most powerful ever recorded. The earthquake, the subsequent tsunami, and the unfolding nuclear crisis would forever change Japan. Entire towns would vanish beneath the waves, thousands of lives would be lost, and a nuclear emergency would unfold on the northeastern coast. In the following chapters, we will explore the events of that fateful day, uncover the science behind the disaster, witness the human struggle for survival, and examine the massive recovery efforts that followed. This is the story of Japan in 2011, a story of catastrophe, courage, and resilience. At 2:46 p.m. local time, the largest earthquake in Japan's recorded history struck off the northeastern coast of Honshu, Japan's main island. Initially estimated at magnitude 8.9, the tremor was later revised to 9.0. The epicenter lay approximately 80 miles east of Sendai, Miyagi Prefecture, beneath the floor of the western Pacific Ocean. The quake occurred along a subduction zone where the Pacific Plate moves beneath the Eurasian Plate. A stretch of the ocean floor measuring roughly 190 miles by 95 miles shifted dramatically, thrusting east-southeast by as much as 164 feet and rising nearly 33 feet. Buildings swayed violently, roads buckled, and bridges trembled under the strain. Trains derailed and power lines snapped, causing localized fires and outages in several towns. In coastal areas, emergency sirens were activated, alerting residents to evacuate to higher ground, though many were unsure of the scale of the threat. In the minutes that followed, residents ran into streets and open spaces, attempting to flee collapsing structures. Some tried to reach higher floors or nearby hills, while others sought safety along inland roads, unaware that these routes might be blocked by debris or disrupted infrastructure. Emergency broadcasters issued warnings, but communication lines were often overwhelmed by the sudden surge in calls and messages. Scientists monitoring the region also noted heightened seismic activity near Mount Fuji. While the volcano remained dormant and there was no eruption, minor tremors were detected. Authorities monitored these movements closely, both to reassure the public and to observe any secondary geological effects that could follow the earthquake. In contrast to the chaos along the coastline, the peak of Mount Fuji stood still and silent, a stark visual reminder of nature's enduring presence. As these minutes passed, the first signs of the approaching tsunami became visible in some areas. The sea began to recede unusually quickly, exposing the ocean floor in patterns that alarmed those who recognized the warning signs. Within moments, the quiet anticipation turned to terror as the massive waves generated by the horizontal and vertical thrusting of the Pacific Plate began racing toward the coast, carrying debris and surging inland. 4 shocks had preceded the main event, including a magnitude 7.2 tremor. In the hours, days, and weeks following, hundreds of aftershocks struck the region, including dozens over magnitude 6.0. The quake was felt as far away as Taiwan, Beijing, and the Russian Far East. Fires erupted in urban areas, including a petrochemical plant in Sendai and an oil refinery in Chiba Prefecture. In Fukushima, a dam burst near the prefectural capital, adding to the region's growing emergency. The earthquake itself, while devastating, was only the first act of this disaster. The sudden thrusting of the ocean floor displaced vast quantities of water, giving birth to a tsunami that would sweep across Japan's coast with lethal speed. Within minutes of the quake, tsunami warnings were issued across the Pacific Basin. The displaced water raced outward from the epicenter at speeds nearing 500 miles per hour. Waves rose to 33 feet along the Japanese coast, inundating Sendai, Iwate, and Fukushima prefectures. In some areas, the water penetrated 6 miles inland, overflowing rivers and swallowing towns in its path. Communities such as Kamaishi, Miyako, Ishinomaki, Kesenuma, and Shiogama were hardest hit. The tsunami carried away boats, vehicles, houses, and countless people. Coastal farmland was submerged, and as the water receded, it left behind piles of debris and the first grim signs of the human toll. The tsunami's reach extended far beyond Japan. Waves of 11 to 12 feet struck Hawaii, 5-foot waves reached the Aleutian Islands, and 9-foot waves struck the coasts of California and Oregon. Even Antarctica recorded small waves that caused portions of the Sulzberger ice shelf to break off. The scale of the disaster became evident within hours. Initial casualty estimates numbered in the hundreds, but as rescue operations progressed, the Japanese government reported over 10,000 dead within 2 weeks. By the end of 2011, the official toll had reached approximately 19,300, with most victims being elderly and drowning in the tsunami waves. The destruction was indiscriminate. Entire towns were erased from maps, critical infrastructure collapsed, and survivors faced immediate shortages of food, water, shelter, and medical supplies. As the water receded, another danger emerged along the coast: Japan's nuclear power plants. At the Fukushima Daiichi facility, 3 operating reactors shut down automatically following the quake. However, the tsunami disabled the backup generators that powered their cooling systems. Within days, the cores of reactors 1, 2, and 3 overheated, leading to partial meltdowns. Hydrogen gas built up in the containment buildings, causing explosions in reactors 1, 2, and 3. Rising temperatures in stored fuel rods of reactor 4 triggered a fire. Radiation levels increased, prompting the evacuation of a 12.5-mile radius around the plant, later expanded to 18 miles. Seawater near the plant became contaminated with high levels of iodine-131, and radiation spread into local food and water supplies. The International Atomic Energy Agency later classified the incident as Level 7, the same as the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. Recovery efforts at Fukushima involved pumping seawater and boric acid into the reactors to stabilize them. Radiation leaks continued for years, including a significant incident in August 2013 when hundreds of tons of irradiated water escaped storage tanks. The disaster left some areas uninhabitable for decades, while others gradually became accessible for limited human activity. The Fukushima crisis demonstrated the vulnerability of coastal nuclear facilities to natural disasters, reshaping policies on energy, safety, and emergency planning in Japan and worldwide. The human toll of the disaster was immense. Entire families were swept away, homes destroyed, and communities fractured. In towns like Higashimatsushima and Rikuzentakata, local authorities struggled to process the overwhelming number of bodies, sometimes burying them in mass graves with promises of proper rites later. Survivors faced not only physical challenges, but emotional and psychological trauma. Many lost family members, friends, and neighbors. Others endured weeks or months in temporary shelters, often with insufficient supplies of food, water, and medical care. Amid the devastation, acts of heroism and resilience emerged. Members of the Japanese self-defense forces, local authorities, and volunteers risked their lives to save others. The military often had to assume command of rescue operations where local governance had collapsed. Civilians assisted one another, creating networks of support amid chaos. Even years later, the scars remained. Over 300,000 people were displaced for long periods, and mental health impacts persisted. Communities that survived were forced to adapt to new realities, rebuilding not only their homes, but their lives. In the immediate aftermath, Japanese Prime Minister Kan Naoto established an emergency command center. Approximately 100,000 members of the self-defense forces were deployed alongside international rescue teams from the United States, China, Australia, India, and New Zealand. The Red Cross and other organizations provided both financial and material support. Rescue efforts were complicated by debris, flooding, and continuing aftershocks. In many areas, survivors were stranded, and supplies could not reach them quickly. Recovery involved searching for survivors, retrieving bodies, and clearing debris to restore access to isolated communities. The Japanese government allocated substantial resources for rebuilding, with supplemental budgets totaling over $155 billion. Infrastructure, homes, and businesses were gradually restored, and by early 2012, industrial output in the affected region had returned to pre-disaster levels. The reconstruction of the Tohoku coastline included seawall construction, higher ground relocation, and improvements in disaster preparedness. Despite these measures, lessons from 2011 highlighted the need for continued investment in emergency planning, particularly for nuclear facilities and coastal communities. The 2011 earthquake, the tsunami, and nuclear crisis left deep marks on Japan. More than 340,000 people were displaced, nearly 19,000 lost their lives, and the economic cost exceeded $122 billion. Cultural heritage sites, farms, and industrial centers suffered extensive damage. Environmental impacts persisted, including radioactive contamination in certain areas and lingering debris in the Pacific Ocean. The disaster prompted widespread evaluation of nuclear safety, coastal engineering, and disaster preparedness. Communities rebuilt with resilience and innovation. Emergency response systems were refined, early warning systems upgraded, and citizens educated on evacuation protocols. Japan's experience in 2011 became a global reference point for disaster management, emphasizing the interconnected risks of natural and technological hazards. Despite the tragedy, the response demonstrated human determination to recover and adapt. From the ruins of destroyed towns rose lessons in preparedness, community solidarity, and the limits of human infrastructure in the face of nature's force. The memory of March 11, 2011 remains a stark reminder of the balance between human life and the power of the planet beneath and around us. The Japan earthquake and tsunami of 2011 reshaped not only the physical landscape of Tohoku, but the lives of millions. It combined the raw power of nature with technological vulnerabilities and tested the limits of emergency response. Yet it also revealed resilience. Communities rebuilt, lessons were learned, and systems improved to prevent similar disasters. The events of that day are a testament to both the destructive force of the earth and the enduring strength of human society in its aftermath.